Hello and welcome to the Monday, December 2nd, 2024 edition of the SANS and Storms Runners Stormcast. My name is Johannes Ulrich and today I'm recording from Jacksonville, Florida. Luckily, there was no major news this long weekend, so hope everybody got some time to relax. And we'll start here with a couple of diaries that we published over the last couple of days. He has been working on a SIEM kind of to go as a front end for our DShield, Honeypot, and Sensor. This has been quite popular among our interns. If you're interested in that, we now have a post by Paul Sagrier, who is writing how to set this all up in AWS, but it also works on your standalone Honeypot in order to install the full SIEM, which requires components like, for example, Elasticsearch. You need a little bit more resources, so better usually to run it on something like a mini PC or virtual machine with Ubuntu versus just sort of a bare bones Raspberry Pi Honeypot. For example, you will need 8 GB of RAM. And Xavier took a look at obfuscation techniques used to make it more difficult to detect an Infostealer. Xavier took the trap stealer as an example and then showed how, first of all, it can be hidden in a JPEG image. It can be obfuscated by just adding essentially code that does nothing, base64 encoding, and a bunch of other techniques. Interesting also that the sort of raw code, of course, increased substantially in size with all of these obfuscation techniques. On the other hand, it certainly helped a virus total score for this very common form of Infostealer. The trap stealer was only 3 out of 63. And given that this is, of course, a big shopping season, I do want to mention some of the threats going around currently. We still have malicious JavaScript being injected into checkout pages. The latest example here comes from Sukuri, who did find credit card skimmers that targeted particular Magento checkout pages. Magento, of course, the Adobe product that does have a good history of vulnerabilities. And of course, there's always a chance of a misconfiguration allowing for this JavaScript to be injected. Interesting domain name being used here, dynamicopenfonts.app and staticfonts.com. Those are the kind of domain names that are easily overlooked because you quite often do load fonts from other websites and that could be mistaken for a legitimate site. Now, while many of these Magento attacks don't require like huge amount of skill, on the other end of the skill spectrum, we do have some sightings of bootkits that affect Linux. So far, Linux hasn't really been targeted much by bootkits. Binarily and ESET now discovered Bootkitty, which is a prototype UEFI bootkit that, as they characterize it, that is targeting the Linux kernel, and they also saw exploitation applying this particular prototype bootkit via the LogoFAIL vulnerability. LogoFAIL was a vulnerability published or made public last year. It does affect the parsing of these boot images that many systems support. If you are configuring a malicious image, it then executes code and does install this bootkit for additional persistent access to the system. Interesting exploit chain here overall. Like I said, it is something more sophisticated and probably not that commonly seen, but given that they're now going after Linux and that this particular exploit chain is now well documented, I would expect this to show up in, for example, some ransomware or so pretty soon. But also realize that in order to take advantage of LogoFAIL, an attacker already has to have quite a bit of access to the victim's system. So there's really more sort of a persistent mechanism, not the initial compromise. Well, and I haven't given away stickers in quite a while, so I want to mitigate this and just this week sort of release a limited amount of stickers. If you do find the sticker page, and I'll add a link to the show notes, use the code podcast, just podcast, all uppercase, in order to claim your sticker. You must log in first to the website before you go to the sticker.html page in order to be able to enter your address and the code. Well, and that's it for today. So thanks for listening and talk to you again tomorrow. Bye.